Okay, so welcome back to my new video. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you some basic commands in Kubernetes. Okay, so let's jump into the terminal. So I'm going to check for my nodes. So the command is kubectl get nodes. Then -o means the output should be wide. Okay, so if we omit the -o wide and then we enter, you see we have only 3 columns: the name, the status, roles, age, and version. But if I do -wide, you see we get extra information like the internal IP, external OS image, kernel version, and container runtime. Okay, so I want to also check the cluster information. So what I'm going to do is say kubectl cluster info. If I hit enter, you can see where my cluster is running. It's running on Kubernetes control plane at this address. And then the core DNS is running at this URL. And then the metric server running on this URL. Okay, so I can also check the API resources. Okay, I'm going to say kubectl API resources. If I hit enter, you can see we have a whole bunch of API resources. The column, the first column is the name, the short name, the API version, the namespace, and then the kind. So whether this resource is a namespace or not. So you'll see true or false. And then okay, so as you can see, ConfigMap, it has the short name as CM. And then there's a node has NO, namespace has NS, port has PO, persistent volume PV, persistent volume claim has PVC, and then service has SVC, deployment has deployed, horizontal auto scalers has HPA. So you can use these short names to create your resource. So now let's filter by the API resources. So if we say -- namespace is equal to false. So as you can see, these are namespaces that are or resources that are not namespaced. Okay, they don't have to exist in a particular namespace. So resources like nodes, namespaces itself, storage classes, Ingress classes, API services, they are all not namespaced. So let's look at resources that are namespaced. So namespace is equal to true. Okay, so these are namespaces that are, or resources that are namespaced. So you can see everything is true. So config maps, limit ranges, port, persistent volume, resource coders, secrets, service account, services, deployment, jobs, cron jobs. They are all name-spaced. So that's why you have namespace is equal to true. So let's also check the resources that we can, that support list and get request. Okay, so we can say kubectl, and then we say verbs is equal to what? List and get. So as you can see, these are all resources that support list and get. Okay, so pod, support, list, and then get verbs. Okay, so I think that is that. And also, let's check the config view. So we can say kubectl config view. Okay, so this one gives you information about your cluster. Okay, so as you can see, these are some information about the cluster that I'm using. So currently I'm using this context. Okay, this cluster information, this is what I'm using, Meetup YouTube. And then the name is also Meetup YouTube. Okay, so those are the cluster information. So we can also check, we can also display the list of context, okay, of this cluster. So I'm going to say kubectl config get context. So as you can see, these are all my clusters that I've created before. And as you can see, the asterisk, it tells me the cluster that I'm currently using. Okay, so you can, if you have multiple clusters, you can switch between this cluster information. Okay, I'm currently using Meetup YouTube. Okay, so so if you want to switch or so let's get the current context first. Kubectl config current context. So you can see the current context that I'm using is Meetup YouTube. Okay, so we want to set the current context to the cluster name. So we can say it's what Meetup YouTube. You see, and if we get a current context, you see, we still have the same cluster information set to this current context. So what else can we do? Let's create a namespace, okay? Kubectl create ns YouTube. That's a short name for namespace. So we can also get the ns. You see, we just created the YouTube namespace 7 seconds ago. What can we do? We want to make use of this namespace. So what we can do is we say kubectl set so we want to make use of this config set context, and then the current context is going to be YouTube, which is our namespace. So we've set the namespace to YouTube. So what else can we do? We can create a pod, okay? So to create a pod, you say kubectl run in Nginx hyphen image is equal to Nginx, and then the port is 80. We don't need to specify the namespace because we've already selected the current namespace to be YouTube. Okay, so if you run this, it's a port created. So if we say kubectl get po, so you can see container is creating. So let's look at it wide. Okay, so currently this pod is running on node 001. Okay. We can also create the same pod, run Nginx -- image is equal to Nginx -- port is 80. And then we want to pipe that to here. Okay, let's maintain the namespace YouTube. We want to pipe this information to a file, okay, calling it port.yaml. And this Nginx, I'm going to call it Nginx -app. So we need to give it a different name so that it doesn't conflict with the one we created before. So as you can see, we have the port.yaml. We can have a look, cat port. You see, this is the definition. Okay. So what I can do is I can apply this YAML file called pod. Kubectl apply -f pod .yaml. You see, it's created. So if we check kubectl get pod wide, you see that is also running. So we have two pod running, and both of them are running on node 01. Okay. We can also create a deployment. Okay, so let's create a deployment. Create deployment Nginx, and we're going to call this. We're going to call this Nginx app 2. Okay, and we want to use the namespace YouTube, and then we pipe that to a file called nginx.yaml. So now, as you can see, we have the nginx.yaml. Okay, so let's create that as well. Kubectl apply -f nginx.yaml. Okay, that is also created. So if we look at kubectl get port wide, you see that is also creating. Oh, what is it? Okay. Yeah, okay. So that is also running. This deployment is running. So we can check the deployment. Kubectl get deployment. You can see that is the deployment. If we check the output wide, okay, it's running this image, and then the selector is what app is equal to Nginx -app 2. Okay, so let's check all our ports. Okay, so as you can see, all the ports are running. This is the deployment, and these are just ports. Okay. So what we can do is we can also do is we can check kubectl get get ports in all namespace. Okay. Port in all namespace. You see, these are all the ports that are running in the namespace. Okay. So as you can see, we have let me clear the screen and rerun this. I think I made a mistake. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, we have the kube system with all these ports running. And then as you can see, the YouTube namespace has only 3 running ports. And we have 2 of them to be just port, and then 1 of them to be a deployment. But they're all coming from the YouTube namespace. So what we can also do is we can also do let's expose this deployment. Okay, kubectl expose deployment, and this deployment we are going to pipe everything to a service.yaml file. Okay, so I'm going to enter. So we're calling the deployment as what? Nginx. Okay. Okay, let me remove the okay, so let's run this. Now that we've run that command, you see we have the service.yaml. We can have a look. Cat service YAML. So this is our service configuration or manifest file. We can apply that kubectl apply -f service.yaml. See, service is created. So we can say kubectl get svc wide. So as you can see, now we have external IP address that we can check. So if you say kel this IP address, you see we have the output as what? Thank you for using Nginx. Welcome to Nginx. Okay, so if we open this in our browser, we're going to see this HTML page. Okay. So we can also get the endpoints. kubectl get endpoints. You see, with the Nginx service, it has this endpoint created some few seconds ago, all wide. Okay, same 3 columns. We can also explain a port. Okay, so we can say kubectl explain port. This gives you a documentation of the port manifest. Okay, so if you do that, you see that a pod is a collection of containers that can run on a host. This resource is created by a client and scheduled onto host. Okay, so it gives you information. So if we say explain deployment, see, it gives you description. Deployment enables declarative updates for ports and replica sets. Okay, so if you want to check a quick documentation on the resource that you want to create, you can run this command. I think I did kubectl get service Okay, so the service type is what? Load balancer. And then this is the external IP. And then this is the node port. Okay. What else can we create? Okay, let's describe a node. Okay. Kubectl describe node. Let's get the node first. Kubectl get node all wide. And then now we can describe the node. Okay, so kubectl describe node. Then we just copy, let's say, the first one. So if I do that, you see, this command gives me more information about the first node, like the CPU information, and then the memory information, and then the ephemeral storage. And yeah, it gives you a whole bunch of information. So you can look through and see, these are labels about the node, some annotations, date time it was created. Yeah, so a whole bunch of information about your node. You can use that command to describe your node. And then remember also, we can also describe our port. Okay. We can say kubectl describe port, and then the name of our port is Nginx app, or yeah, port Nginx app. So once you do that, you can see the node on which it's running, the namespace, the status is what running, the image that is running on, okay, and then some port information. Yeah, so this is a basic description of your port. We can also show labels of this port, okay. We can say hyphen. Okay, let me clear the screen first. You can say kubectl get ports, and then we want to show labels. You see that the show label gives you the last column. Okay, so this port Nginx has run is equal to Nginx as a label. So we can add labels. We can add labels to this port. So what we can do is we will say kubectl label port Nginx, and then we're going to just say new is equal to awesome. Okay. Now it's been labeled. So now if we say show labels, so as you can see, we have the new is equal to awesome, and then the run is equal to Nginx. So now we can get this port without referencing the name, but we can reference it by the label. New is equal to awesome. So yeah, so this one you can go wide. So you can select a port based on the label, but not by the name of the port. Okay. You see here, we didn't reference the name of the port. We just said label new is equal to awesome. Okay, that is how you add labels to your ports. What else can I do? We can also annotate a port. Okay, so let's do that. Kubectl annotate. annotate the Nginx port, okay, and then we're calling it icon URL is equal to aerogram.io, but we don't want to add the namespace YouTube. You see port annotated. Okay, so if we describe this port, kubectl describe this port, you see the labels that we added. New is equal to awesome, and then this annotation that we added, icon URL is equal to this URL. Okay, so this is how you can add labels and annotations to your running port. Okay, you don't have to kill the port before you add all this information. You can add it on the fly. We can also scale a port, okay, or a deploy. Yeah, we can only scale a deployment, but we cannot scale a port. Okay, so let's get our port. Let's get the deployment. So we have Nginx -up2. So we want to scale this deployment to 5 running ports. So we're going to scale it to 5. Currently, we have 1 running. If I run this, so now if I check the ports, get ports, then show labels. You see, we have 5 of them now, but 2 of them is still creating. So you see, all the 5 is now running. Okay, it's now running. We can also auto scale this deployment. So we're going to say kubectl auto scale deployment Nginx -up2, and then the minimum we are looking at is 2, and then -- maximum we are looking at is 10. So the port or the deployment is scaled. So we can say kubectl get HPA, horizontal auto scaling, port auto scaling. So you can see we have scaled the. Okay, so I forgot to add this information, -- CPU %. If the CPU utilization is 80 or more, it should auto scale. Okay, so let me delete. It says it already exists, so let me delete HPA Nginx -up2. Okay, it's deleted, so I'm going to create it again. So it's created. So if we say kubectl get HPA, you see now we have it 7 seconds ago. Okay, so that is how you can auto scale a deployment. Okay, you can also look at the logs from a port, kubectl logs, and then we have Nginx -up2 -f. Logs. Okay, the port is Nginx. Yeah, so it gives us information about the Nginx port. Okay, so this is how you can check the logs coming out from your port. Let me cancel that. And then we can also exec into a deployment. Okay, so currently kubectl get ports, show labels. So we want to exec into this, one of these deployment. Okay, so what we can do is we say kubectl exec into this port. Then we'll say ---- bash. So currently we are inside the port. So we can say, let me see if kel even works here. Kel localhost. Okay, kel is not working, it's not installed. So understand. Let's see if the sh works also. Okay, so that works. So let's see if kel also works here. Local host. Kel is also not installed here. Yeah, but that is fine. That is how you exec into your pod or your deployment. Okay. What we can also do is to do rollout. Okay, so we can set images for our deployment. So let's say we have kubectl set image, and we want to change this Nginx app. We want to change the image to 1.14.2, and then we record that information. So it's been updated. If we say kubectl describe deployment, and it's called Nginx app Nginx-app2. You see, the image has been changed to 1.14.2. Okay, it's been changed. So what we can do is also do kubectl rollout, the rollout history. We can check the history of our deployment. So you see, we only have one revision. So I'm going to change it to 1.16 or change it back to the original. Okay. Set image to the original. And then if we check the history, you see now we have 2 revisions. Okay. So assuming we want to go back to 1.14.2, what we can do is we say kubectl rollout undo, and then we want to go back to revision 1. Okay, and the name of our deployment is Nginx app2. Okay, so if we check the rollout history, you see currently we are using revision 3 now. Okay. We can also check the rollout status. Kubectl rollout status of this deployment. You see, it's been rolled out successfully. We can also restart the rollout. Let's see if we can do that. We can say restart. You see, restarted. So let's check the history. You see, now it's been restarted and we have this revision 4. Okay. We can also edit a deployment. Okay, so let's check kubectl edit deployment, and then the deployment is Nginx app-. Nginx-app2. Okay. So currently I'm in there. I can change the image. I can change the image to just Nginx without a version. Okay. So once it's been edited, so as you can see, edited. Okay. So nothing has been affected. Get deployment. You see, nothing has been affected. Get ports, show labels. You see, all the pods are still running. You can also edit a service. Okay, so let's say kubectl get service wide. Okay, so we can also edit this service. Edit service. Name of the service is Nginx-service. You see, if we want to change anything about this service, we can just scroll down, up, down, and then change it. But I don't want to change anything here, so we can just close it. You see, says edit cancel, no changes made. So we are good. Let's also check, show some metrics for a given port and sort it by the CPU or memory. Okay, so we can say kubectl top port, and then we want to sort this Nginx. Okay, let's say it's deployment. Let's check for deployment. Name of the deployment. Then we sort it by the CPU. Okay, so let's just do for the port. Okay, so let's check for this port. So this is the name of the port. And then we want to sort by the CPU. You see, this is the CPU, and then this is the memory. Okay, so what if we want to sort by memory? You see, we don't have a lot of ports to sort by the memory or the CPU, so that's why we have this information. Not too much of information, but it's all good. What else can I do? I can also code on my node. So what if there's time for maintenance? What do I need to do? I can mark any node as unschedulable. I can drain the node. I can mark any node as schedulable and show some given metrics. So let's look at that. So let's say kubectl get nodes. So we have these two nodes from Azure Kubernetes Services. We want to code on node 001 and 000. Okay, I'm going to copy the name, and then I'm going to say kubectl code on help. Okay, so mark node as unschedulable. Okay, and you just need the keyword or the verb code on, and then the name of the node you want to code on. Okay, so I'm just going to pass in the name of, let me copy that. So that is the name of the node I want to code on. Okay, it's been coded on. So as you see before, it was ready. Now the status changed to ready and scheduling disabled. So if I try to schedule any pod or deployment, it's not going to be scheduled on this node because it's time for maintenance. Okay, we can also drain a node. Okay, so what we can do is kubectl drain drain node 0, 0, 1. Can drain this node 0, 1 and then hit enter. You see it's been codon. So if I say get nodes, so they are all, both of them are scheduling disabled, even though they are ready, but they are all codon. So I want to uncodon these two nodes. So what I can do is I'll say kubectl uncodon. Oh, I made a mistake again. So what I can do is kubectl uncodon, and then the name of the VM I want to uncodon. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me clean it up and see if it's gonna work. It's too much work. So let me just copy the name. kubectl uncodon and then it's 1. And then the other one is 0. Let me uncodon these two. So let me say get nodes. So you can see they are all back to ready. Yeah, so yeah, so I think that is all for the things I want to do today. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. And yeah, I think let me do the last thing before we end the video. So you can also check if what you are authorized or what you are authenticated to do in a Kubernetes cluster. So to check if you have certain rights, okay, or authorizations, let's say to list, to get, and to create, all these things, you can check using a command line. So if you say kubectl auth, can I create a deployment in the YouTube namespace? So once you do this, it's going to tell you yes. So that gives you an idea what you can do in that namespace. So can I also list? Can I get? Can I create? Okay. Yeah, it says what? List. Okay, so let me just do it one after the other. Can I list? Yes. Can I get? Yes. Okay. Can I also get as Dave? No, because it doesn't recognize this user. Okay, so it tells you no, you cannot do that. You cannot create or you cannot get. So let's see because this user doesn't exist, so you cannot create any deployment in this namespace. Okay, it gives you no. So you can use this command just to check what you are allowed to do in your Kubernetes clusters. So I'm going to leave all the commands that I typed in this video, and then you can practice them out. Yeah, so I think that is all. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I'll see you in the next one.